Call to order the regular meeting of the Village Board of Gurnee for March 11, 2024. Roll call, please.
Garner.
Here.
O'Brien.
Present.
Balmas.
Present.
Thorstenson.
Here.
Woodside. Ross. Here. 5 present, 1 absent.
You all stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Welcome, everybody. On for the first item on the agenda, approval of consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Second.
Motion by Trustee Balmas, second by Trustee O'Brien. Roll call, please.
Garner.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
Balmas.
Aye.
Thorstenson.
Yes.
Ross. Aye. 5 aye.
Motion carries. Pat?
Item number 1, approval of the minutes from the February 19, 2024 meeting. Item number 2, approval of resolution 2024-01, reallocating 2024 volume cap to the Village of Buffalo Grove, Illinois. Item number 3, approval of Information System Division's recommendation to purchase 4 Cisco 9300X-24Y-A network switches, cabling, and associated software and hardware maintenance from Presido Networked Solutions Group, LLC, at a total of $82,285.84, State of Illinois Department of Innovation and Technology contract. At number 4, approval of request from Administration, Police, and Public Works Departments to renew a janitorial contract with Alpha Building Maintenance Services for a period of 1 year at a total cost of $65,556. At number 5, approval of payroll for period ending February 23, 2024 in the amount of $1,007,000, $669.44. At number 6, approval of bills for period ending March 11, 2024 in the amount of $2,483,902.69.
Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Garner, second by Trustee Thorstenson. Roll call, please.
Garner.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
Balmas.
Aye.
Thorstenson.
Yes.
Ross.
Aye.
5 aye.
Motion carries. No petitions and communications. No
Correct.
reports. No old business. On to new business. So the first item on the agenda is approval of ordinance 2024,
14.
authorizing the execution of a fire alarm monitoring agreement between the Village of Gurnee and FSS Technology, LLC. Pat?
Sure. So Chief Kavanaugh referenced this during the budget hearing, got a memo from Deputy Fire Chief Dave Douglas. The village, the most recent contract we have with Johnson Control Solutions for fire alarm monitoring was approved September 1st, 2019. It's a 5-year agreement, so it's coming up for expiration here at the end of September, or the beginning of September. With that in mind, the fire department took this opportunity to see if there was another reputable vendor that could provide quality service to our businesses in town with the latest technology equipment and then some enhanced customer service. So after the research was conducted, FSS Technologies came to the forefront. Currently all dispatch centers in Lake County, except for Gurney's, using FSS. Staff had a meeting with the company back in January, had representatives from fire, police, information systems, code enforcement, economic development, and then our partners at the Newport Fire Protection District. And on that meeting, a little bit of background on the company, been around 52 years, designing, installing, and servicing fire alarm monitoring and receiving systems, family-owned business, about 90 people employed, and they operate in Illinois, Michigan, and Indiana. FSS has proposed installation of a new network, new communications equipment and software for the village and the businesses at a price in what businesses are currently paying. In addition, they'll handle trouble and supervisory alarms, which right now are handled by our communications personnel. So partnering with FSS, lower cost of the business community, and then also we'll take some of the workload off our communications staff, which again you heard in the budget hearing. Staffing's a challenge in there, so anything we can do to help free up some of their time so they can focus on answer 911 calls would be good. The businesses that lease the equipment, they can expect about a $90 savings a year. In addition to the business saving, there's a little revenue bump from the village, approximately about $30,000 that we would see an increased revenue. Conducted all the necessary reference checks Those all turned out well, so based off of that, the services provided, savings to the businesses, the little bit of bump to the village, and then taking some of that work off of dispatch, staff's recommending that we enter into a 5-year agreement with FSS. It would be effective September 1st, 2024, so obviously be working in the interim as far as that transition closely with the business community. And again, Deputy Chief Douglas' memo had a little bit additional information in there. The contracts included, Attorney Winter took a look at the contract. All that is in order, and it's ready for your consideration. Deputy Chief is here if there's any specific questions as far as the service or the transition.
Yes, Trustee Thorson.
Will be implemented, I'm not sure who I'm asking this to, is it DC? Since it'll be implemented on September 1, if our business has already paid a fee for their existing alarm services, is it prorated, the new contract?
So with the current monthly charges to the subscribers, that continues on. So once the contract is expired with Johnson Control, they'll continue to pay a monthly subscriber fee, but now to FSS. So there'll be no, so the transition will be just be every month, but it'll just be to a new vendor.
So they get a fee decrease starting on September 1?
Correct.
Gotcha. Thanks.
No other questions or comments? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Ross, second by Trustee Garner. Roll call, please.
Garner.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
Balmas.
Aye.
Thorstenson.
Yes.
Ross.
Aye.
5
Motion carries. On to item 2, approval of ordinance 2024,
15.
adding one Class 1 liquor license by amending Section 6-56 of Article 2 of Chapter 6 of Gurnee Municipal Code entitled Alcoholic Beverages. This is for Tacos El Durango, 3900 Washington Street. Pat?
Sure. So Tacos El Durango's over at Washington Crossing, which is at Washington and Ambrosio. Been over there for about 10 years. Family-owned and operated business. They're looking to acquire a Class 1 liquor license, which is the sale of alcoholic liquor for consumption on premise or sold, and the sale of service-to-go, mixed drinks, single servings of wine pursuant to some state legislation. Looking to just add alcoholic beverages you would expect with Mexican cuisine to the menu along with beer. Police Department's conducted the necessary background checks and found nothing to preclude the license, so it's before you for consideration.
Any questions or comments? Is there a motion?
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Thorstenson, second by Trustee O'Brien. Roll call, please.
Garner.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
Balmas.
Aye.
Thorstenson.
Yes.
Ross.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item number 3, approval of ordinance 2024,
16.
adding one Class 7 liquor license by amending Section 6-56 of Article 2 of Chapter 6 of the Gurnee Municipal Code entitled Alcoholic Beverages, Keto Ramen, 4949 Grand Avenue. Pat?
Yep. So this would be a new business looking to open over in Grand Mill Plaza, which is at Grand and 21. They've applied for a Class 7 liquor license, which is the sale of beer and wine for consumption on premise only. Where sold. They'll be located kind of in the corner of the building. Next to Stanton Law is the suite. Again, they're looking to offer beer and sake, commonly associated with Asian cuisine, to go along with what they're the food that's provided in the restaurant. So again, Police Department did all the necessary background checks and found nothing to preclude the license. So it's before you.
Any questions or comments? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Balmas, second by Trustee O'Brien. Roll call, please.
Garner.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
Balmas.
Aye.
Thorstenson.
Yes.
Ross. 5
Motion carries. On to item number 4, approval of ordinance 2024,
17.
adding one Class 7 liquor license by amending Section 6-56 of Article 2 of Chapter 6 of the Gurnee Municipal Code entitled Alcoholic Beverages for Brittany's, sorry. Evan, I guess that sounds better, doesn't it? Brittany. Event Center, 5101 Washington Street. Pat?
Sure. So I think it was towards the end of last year, we removed the Class 1 liquor license for Tanya's Savvy Events, which is located at 21 in Washington. Terry Waddell Mentor, who many of us know, has been operating Brittany's Design for a number of years, as well as a small catering business. She's looking to occupy the space that was formerly occupied by Tanya's and run an event center. So again, Class 7 is a sale of both beer and wine for consumption on premise where sold. She's looking at daily or hourly rentals, depending on what the customers or event organizers need. Regardless of the rentals, events would end at midnight. Spaces, the size of the events would vary, but the space can accommodate between 20 and 160. Food can be brought in by local restaurants. And if there was a need for off-duty security, she would work with the Gurnee Police Department on that. So the Class 7, from our perspective, is more restrictive than what was issued to that space before. So that's good from a public safety and police standpoint. Again, did all the necessary checks, found nothing to preclude before you for consideration.
Any questions or comments? Oh, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by trustee O'Brien, second by trustee Thorstensen. Roll call, please.
Gardner.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
Thomas.
Aye.
Thorstensen.
Yes.
Ross. Five.
Motion carries. I'm just going to move public comment up above item 5 for the continuation of the budget workshop and allow for, looks to be some people who would like to make a public comment, right? I'm not that astute, but I can guess that would be true, right? So, well, the way public comment works is just would ask that you step up to the microphone, state your name, and say whatever you like, within reason. I had to have a back door, right, just in case. I assume everybody will be just fine. So, yeah, please, if anybody would like to step up to the microphone, you can.
Okay, again, I would like to address the speeding situation on Florida Avenue from Northwestern to Green Bay Road, especially in front of Spalding School. I've been here, I've talked to engineers, I've called the police multiple times. I watched police sit there and not even giving anybody a ticket. And last week, somebody had broken into my car, so I called the police, and they came out, and I said, why aren't any tickets given? He said, well, we don't make much money on speeding tickets. Well, that was a dumb, ass thing to say. For the average person, getting a speeding ticket is an expense and an inconvenience if we have to go to court. You have to give them tickets. There's been about 6 of us who have offered for the police to sit in our driveways to get these people. We have not been taken up on it. They're putting in a sidewalk now, okay, from the bike path down to Belle Plaine. Okay, that's fine, and if that's what you want to do, do it. But it's not going to stop them from being injured by people doing 50 miles an hour down the road. It's just not. I mentioned speed bumps. We don't do speed bumps in Gurnee. Every other city around here does, or village. But they said, oh, they might veer off into the, well, there's usually those big signs that say bump, so you slow down. It's just what I've experienced. Something has to be done besides putting in a sidewalk. If you don't have police enough to go around, then get a thing that takes the tickets automatically. Nobody wants the expense of speeding tickets. And it's the teachers, it's the bus drivers, it's the parents. Then they put a line down the middle of the street from Green Bay to Belle Plaine. Do you think they would have continued it in front of the school where our precious children are going? This young lady has lived in the area for 50 years probably. She lives, I think it used to be referred to as Sturtevant Subdivision. She has dealt with this for I don't know how long. I am now her caregiver, and we walk across the street to get to the sidewalk, and I'm almost hit by a car on a daily basis because they don't do it and nothing is enforced. I did have communication with this officer here, and they all disappeared. I don't know how, but something has to be done. We're not asking for a lot. We want our neighborhood to be safe. I have children in all the schools, and they're at my house. We have animals. All our neighbors are for this. I had to put my garbage can in the middle of the road with signs on it that said, drive like your children live here. You know what happened? The police came out and told me to move my can. Everybody on my block will have their garbage cans out there pretty soon if nothing's addressed. So I wish something could be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your passion. I knew somebody'd pop up out of that group, right?
why not publicly? So can you hear me okay? I'm Megan Zelasis. I'm a mother of 3 in District 56. To begin, I want to be clear. I love our schools, the opportunity that my kids have been offered, the families, the teachers, the overall unity of D56 is something that we will forever be grateful for. That being said, there has always been a dark cloud looming over the school in our district, and that is behavior. Not all, but small pockets that are consistently shedding a bad light on our district. I was warned 10 years ago when we moved back to Gurnee that Viking would be especially troublesome. We were optimistic. We purposely chose Gurnee for its diversity, both economically and racially, and I was hopeful people among the community were dramatic. We didn't want to have our kids live in a bubble, and I had faith the school would handle the adverse behavior. Well, here we are today, and I was wrong. Everything that I was warned about has been made abundantly clear. There has been a lack of control with the middle school, and 2 Fridays ago, incident with the loaded gun showed me that it would be irresponsible for me to sit back and have faith in our district to handle this offense and future offenses appropriately. Yes, the child was expelled, which honestly I was always confident that that would be the case. But what led this child to be comfortable enough to bringing a loaded handgun into the school in the first place? If clear rules and guidelines and consistency for repeat offenders were put into place to begin with, and more minor occurrences along the way were handled appropriately, would this child have had the nerve to push the limits this far? I was made aware of a clear and present danger assessment that schools should follow. I have to wonder if that was ever implemented. I was told there was no warning, which I have a hard time understanding considering my children had previous incidents with this particular student. I was told by the Gurnee Police Department he didn't want to shoot anybody, he just wanted to hide the gun from his mother. I can't help but wonder why a loaded gun in school isn't appalling to everyone in our community. He went as far as breaking the law and put numerous students and faculty lives at risk. Intent or not, this was absolutely reckless. I know there's a lot, as the public, we cannot know due to privacy of minors. I guess overall, it's the silence of our community, Board of Education, and the administration that has been the hardest for me to stomach. These are our children dealing with adult issues. That being, I got 2 more pages. That brings me to my next point. There's almost zero clear communication coming from the school to offer some sort of confidence that the school does in fact have the safety of all of our students and faculty in mind. This was such a missed opportunity to re-implement and remind the students and their parents of exactly what won't be tolerated at these schools. The last couple days, we've been finally receiving emails regarding the incident. Aside from telling us safety is the district's #1 priority, we are reminded of their previous plans that have been implemented that have been proven not to be efficient or at the very least enough. Threats, violence, weapons, just to name a few, should be held at a higher regard, and the parents of these particular students need to know when these rules are broken, true consequences should be upheld. I understand Senate Bill 100 comes into play. However, risking the lives and safety of the majority of students to follow SB 100 doesn't seem to be doing anyone any favors. In fact, it seems to be a scapegoat in setting proper boundaries in place to assure a safe school environment for everyone. I can't imagine giving certain students and parents continual free passes or lesser consequences is doing anyone else any favors in the long run. It's teaching it's okay to defy rules because they are not applicable to all. Meanwhile, the non-offenders are walking around the school on eggshells, making sure they don't ruffle the feathers of the offenders to keep themselves safe. My seventh grade son advised his 6th grade sister when entering Viking was, "Sonny, keep your head down in the hallways. You'll see a lot of fights, but if you mind your own business, they'll leave you alone." Why do my kids and other students have to tiptoe as to not enrage particular students? I do know as well teachers share the same unease as they educate these students, and if the district hasn't had a chance to ask them how safe they feel, then they've been let down as well. As a mother, my #1 job is to protect my kids, and clearly I will do whatever is in my power to do so. However, 5 days a week, I send my children to Viking, and I have to wonder if I'm failing them. I can honestly say my faith is gone. I do not trust that safety is the #1 concern of D56 as I've read in their student handbook. I've seen zero action to prevent violence. I've seen no accountability or honest responses as to what is being changed within the school. We had a gun scare last October at the school dance. No new rules were implemented even after they admittedly saw they didn't have a clear plan in place if, God forbid, this was to happen again. As a parent, it feels as though the plan is to keep trying the same approach and be hopeful for a different outcome. Maybe that's not the case. That is what we can assume based on the lack of transparency from our district. I'm here today to gain support of our community and leaders to implement change within our schools. I understand life happens and some things are out of our control, but an attempt to curb this major issue within our school would absolutely be a start. I'd love to regain some faith within our community and our schools that a safe learning environment is something we all want and something every kid deserves.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Candy Reimholtz. I am a taxpayer, a lifelong resident, creator and admin of the Gurney Moms group, a member of the Gurney Area Moms Demand Action Group, a Gurney school communicator, and most importantly, a parent. That gun that was just referenced, loaded gun, was in my daughter's hallway at school. I'm giving you all this background to demonstrate that I couldn't sit this one out. Trust me, I wanted to. I am tired, but I'm here. I'll try to be respectful of everyone's time and keep my comments on point and personal to my experience. We are here because we are frustrated. The people here with me in this room are excellent parents, neighbors, involved members of the community. We are busy people. We are at the games, the concerts, volunteering in classrooms. We are the ones buying pool passes and attending Warren Newport Public Library events. We are playing in the neighborhood parks and shopping at our local businesses. And we're the ones knocking on doors, getting referendums passed for our schools. We are doing everything we can and trusting that the community surrounding us will also do their part. Educate the children, update and maintain buildings and equipment, hire the right people to do important work, and enforce our laws. So it feels like a slap in the face when there's a breakdown in the trust in this unspoken agreement. From my standpoint, I didn't feel like the communication was sufficient and the transparency was lacking. A big, scary thing happened, and we can't always stop that. But as leaders of the community, we need to face the issues head on. First, we need to admit that there is a problem. The most recent incident is just an attention-grabbing symptom of a bigger problem. And even though we are talking about District 56 tonight, these problems are not unique to them. Behavior and discipline in our schools is the third rail of education. No one wants to touch it. Everyone has to be so careful of what they say all the time, and the second you mention the gun word, everyone all of a sudden can't seem to find their voice. It is time to try something new. The same old thing isn't cutting it, and frankly, we are out of time. We are so lucky this incident didn't end in tragedy, but that's it. It sounds like it was way too much luck, and that is not what I want to rely on when it comes to my daughter's safety. I want policy change, best practices instituted and followed, accountability for not following procedures, and communication that actually says something. The parents are screaming to keep our kids safe. The school is screaming back, we're doing everything we can. Well, what is that? What is everything? What can you tell us? We have to be brave enough to say the scary stuff out loud. We have to be brave enough to make unpopular decisions. We have to be brave enough to say, we are lost and we need help. But why I'm here today and what I'm asking for tonight, I'd love to see some sort of formal acknowledgement of support from the village and the mayor's office. I'd also like to see the creation of a task force, a group that includes all interested parties, village representatives, school administration, Board of Education, teachers union, parents, other community leaders and related organizations, the police department, social workers, anybody that's interested. We can then, one, admit that there's a problem and truly identify what that problem is. Decide on who wants to roll up their sleeves and commit to solving this problem. And three, start. We can't wait until this is perfect. We can't have a perfect plan. It's not gonna be perfect, it's not gonna be pretty, but we have to move and momentum is on our side right now. No egos, no blame, just people who give a you-know-what, all in the room together. Let's be an example to other communities dealing with these same issues. It cannot be us versus them. It has to be us, plus them too, and that guy over there, and maybe the crossing guard has some good ideas, but it has to be everybody involved. We all have skin in the game. Gurney cannot be the community of opportunity without great schools. They say it takes a village. Why not the village of Gurney?
Well-spoken ladies. Now a guy gets a chance to see how well-spoken. It's gonna be
Mine's gonna
tough to
suck by
follow those
comparison,
ladies,
so-
but, yeah.
It'll be short and sweet. Obviously, I'm part of the parent group. We're all upset. We're all scared. I think what she said was perfect, is that we're out of time, right? Because a lot of the parents, myself included, are already looking at other alternative educational paths because we don't like the fact that we can send our kid to school and potentially have something awful happen. So what we're asking is, please help us put pressure on the school. We do want to collaborate. We do want to work together. We do want to make it safer, but we don't want to wait. And we don't want another reactive solution. I don't know if you guys had the opportunity to read the communication that came from the superintendent, but it was basically restating everything they already have in place with the introduction of an anonymous tip line. Again, reactive. Something's already happened if you're calling a tip line. We want something proactive to keep the guns from getting in the school in the first place. If you can help us do that, it would be tremendously amazing. We appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all right. All right. I just would say thank you, and it's Megan, right? Where is she at? There you go. Thank you for your call to me to have your passion. My wife, even though our kids are clearly out of school, she was as passionate as you were, telling me how crazy I was not to be right in there with you, because she wouldn't for a moment, with all these mama bears, and sorry guys, but mama bears loading up, it's like this isn't going to last long. So I appreciate the way you've approached it, as opposed to just accusing. I've had an opportunity to talk to the superintendent for District 56, and probably the most frustrating thing immediately out of this was this whole privacy versus informing the rest of the parents in school part. I wouldn't want to send my child to a school where they don't know what happened to the kid that did this, right? So how do I solve that? So they're up against the privacy issue, and their hands are tied to some degree. But to me, as parents, I would want to attack it from a legislation standpoint, to have a carve-out where there would be able to be a communication where you don't harm the student, right? You can kind of figure, what if my kid did that and suddenly they're blabbing things all over about my child? I wouldn't like that. But on the other hand, when you have a serious situation like this, I want to know, is my kid safe? And part of my kid being safe is the child that had the gun in school, is he gone? And the sooner that comes out, the sooner I'm at least have some feeling like, okay, things are being handled. So to me, when you mentioned, and I think the rest of the trustees will say I'm famous for forming committees or task force, whatever you want to name it, is that you need to have a voice that's consistent and you have real live solutions. And you have a starting point, but it has to not die down. To me, I've found that my experience, and this is with whether it's the superintendents or the school boards, they've interacted really well with us in the police department. They're awesome. But from these circumstances, I'm not a parent that has a child in school. So I don't have these experiences where you're talking about this discipline happened, it wasn't appropriate, those kind of things. I don't have that information, and neither does our board. So there's some things you can do. I'd like to partner with you in getting together a group of people that I think Candy, was it Candy or Megan? I'm confusing the two of you. And in terms of having representatives from each area that would be able to speak to solutions that we all need, and then for you to clearly understand what the limitations are, because to me, someone that volunteers for the school board generally isn't there for bad purposes, right? It's like they're not setting out to make your kids not safe. But at the same time, it's like understanding, like, well, what's going on? What are you guys talking about? What are the limitations? How come we don't know more? So if we're sitting in a group, you're going to find out, and then there needs to be really excellent communication to say, I can't say this because X, Y, Z, and I can say this. And then you say that's unacceptable. We need to find a better way to do that. And to me, if there's a group of people that are communicating together, it's a police officer, it's a school administrator, it's lots of moms and dads, maybe that could be solved. Because, like I said, the lack of communication wasn't because they didn't care, it was because they seemed really concerned about violating one student's rights. And then you'd say, well, what about the rest of our students, right? I mean, shouldn't they have the right to make a choice to come to school or not if he's not expelled? And I don't know how you guys know that he was expelled, because supposedly that's not something they can tell, right? Pardon me? Oh, did the parent give permission to release the information? Okay, so that was the one exception that the superintendent provided. He says if the family said it's okay, they can release the information to the parents. But if they said no, then you wouldn't know today, other than he just isn't showing up to school. So to me, there's a lot of work to be done. I think there's a lot of frustration on the school board and school administrators' sides, because they're receiving your calls and they'd love to answer your questions and they're not sure how. So I'm willing to partner with you guys, and I think the rest of the board would be too. I know that everybody here is parents and had their kids in and out of school, so thank you. And like I said, really thank you the way you presented it. Sometimes people come in and they're so angry, it's not helpful, right? It's like, I'm angry. It's like, I get that part, but how can we help? So, oh, all right, well, you're working on it, right? So immediately would be, I'd like to connect, I'm not sure who the spokesman is. It Candy and Megan, are you the two that are gonna kind of lead the charge, or are there other people? It's, as opposed to meeting with 50 people, it's easier to meet with a couple people and then talk. Okay, then to be able to talk through that, I think that'd be really great and to do it now. I get it that you guys are looking at other places that you feel would be more safe or comfortable. And my experience with District 56, and I know that Trustee Garner would be hopping up and down. He loves District 56, and so do I. So I don't like hearing negative things about it, but I get it. You have to face the issues, whatever they might be. And we're just that step removed from the school, right? Is that I'm not in charge of the school board, I'm not the superintendent, but I'm part of the community, and you're part of my community. So I want to see it be successful. So I want to be a part. But at the same time, there's that, ultimately, when someone says to you, it's like, well, get on the school board. It's like, yeah, make a difference. It's like, well, that is one of the possible solutions, but there's some other ways we can go about it, that we can work together. And I know that just especially the superintendent is very open to work with me and work with you guys to find a solution. I mean, is this his first year as superintendent? Yeah, welcome. Yeah, you say welcome to being a superintendent, right? So, yeah, so thanks again. I think we're all set. So if you can, I'm not sure how you want to communicate with me. You already know my number, so, yeah. Yes, we have, so please do. And thanks again for coming out, so, right. No other public comment? So we have one item that's going to take a while, so you guys don't have to hang around, but you can if you want to hear us talk about budgets, so. So on to item 5, continuation of budget workshop. And Heather, sorry we cut you out of the first round, but I think you're up next unless John had something. Did we had enough questions for John? Was there anybody else that had questions for John?
We're done with John.
Oh. Well, you might be done with John. I'm not, I don't work with him every day, so there you go. Okay, Heather?
All right, we'll move on to Public Works then. So we continue to maintain the same number of employees as last year. As mentioned earlier by Pat, the GIS specialist position is partially funded by Public Works, so that's the reason for the plus 0.25%. Can't say enough good things about having the GIS people working with us. It's all day, every day, nonstop customer service that we get from Eric Venden, and couldn't say enough good things about him. We have 3 unbudgeted positions, as you see there. Pretty much just allows us to hire a new person when someone higher up vacates. So maintenance worker 1s are the unbudgeted positions that you see there. So when we lose a 2 or a lead, we can hire a 1, which we have some slated for in the coming months. Last year, we started with the part-time utility locator position. So that is listed underneath both streets and utility. They locate not just our water and sewer, but they also locate streetlights and stuff like that. So it's split between the 2 divisions. That's been immensely helpful to our division. Prior to filling this, if we had a slew of utility locates in the summer, we'd have to pull someone off of standard duty to be able to do this, sometimes 2 people, just to keep up. So now we have a designated person that starts generally around April and works until end of September, and he does it full-time, and he used to work for us, so it's even better because he knows where the infrastructure is. We also have summer helper in the utility division last year for the first time, so we're going to continue that again with 6 in street division, which is consistent with previous years. Next slide. This year was another successful year in all of our divisions. In order to maintain the same level of service next year, we've budgeted $4.3 million, which is approximately $22,000 less than the current budget year. With funds this year, we tackled snow and ice, which seemed to come and go in the blink of an eye, if you missed it. Although it did snow on Halloween, once in November and once in February, the majority of all events took place in a few-week period in January. As of the date when I wrote the notes for this, we had 10 events with approximately 1,700 tons of salt and 19,250 gallons of liquid de-icer that was all used to battle 18 inches of frozen water. That was our lowest snow total on record in over 15 years, and as far back as Christine can get me data for, so I think it's been the worst one on record. Average cost per inch was about $47,250. The street division continues to maintain many types of infrastructure, such as sidewalks, curbs, roads, ditches, storm sewer, detention basins, street lights, signs, and trees, just to name a few. We also manage the contracts for items like landscaping and mowing for several village facilities, as well as street sweeping. This past year, the village achieved Tree City USA designation from the Arbor Day Foundation in partnership with the U.S. Forest Service and the National Association of State Foresters for the 26th year in a row. We also obtained our 12th Tree City USA Growth Award. So doing good things over there in the forestry division. Last year, we held a mulch delivery program for residents because we had such a large amount of excess wood chips. And this year, taking on the stuff from Bittersweet has made us have an even larger pile. So we're starting that program. We ran into a couple glitches with the software sending the work order information over appropriately. So it's on hold for a few days while we figure that out, but then it'll come back. Let's see, what else did we do? All sorts of great things. In 24-25, we expect more retirements, like I mentioned earlier, and backfilling with new talent. Our tree trimming budget remains at last year's level to continue forward with reaching a 6-year trimming standard. The emerald ash borer treatments continue, as does the removal program for the ash trees, which generates all the mulch. We have a smaller budget for stump grinding this year because we proposed for a stump grinding attachment so that we would be able to kind of do full service. We cut down the tree and we stump grind it while we're there the same day. So increasing that level of service to residents. Our 50-50 tree program planting program was open for applications around the end of February and will continue through April 5th. Next year, we'll continue with ongoing building maintenance and public works to keep our systems operational. We're going to continue to address sidewalk trip hazards in-house with our sidewalk grinder, as well as our capital sidewalk replacement program, even though costs went up on that about 20% for concrete. And we'll also continue to address calls for service, which includes, the traditional pothole, roadkill, debris in the road, lights out, fallen branches, storm response, and so on. Next year, we plan to do some additional streetlight wire replacement projects. So our wires have been in the ground for many years, and originally they were put in direct bury. So over time, that kind of degrades them, as it does with most infrastructure. So we'll be replacing that with more conduit-based installations. And we hope to focus on some LED replacement programs. So my staff stays in close contact with, I think it's BA Solutions, who helps us find grants for replacing lights. So when they find a really good program, they come to us because we've had a good relationship over the years to try and implement. So whether that's LEDs in here, or LEDs at Public Works, or LEDs in the parking lot at the police station, like wherever we can get free or limited, or we just pay for our own labor type of grant work, we get that done. Moving on to water and sewer. So in water sewer operating fund, we've budgeted $7.55 million, which is a decrease of $128,000 or 1.6% over last year. The funds from our current fiscal year have been put to great use, including the Orion water meter reader changeout program. I'm excited to report that the wrap-up of our Orion meter changeout program will be for this fiscal year. If you recall, we originally planned to kick it off and have it be like a 5-year program, 4 or 5-year program. We started in May of 21, but COVID happened and chip shortages happened, and we couldn't get the devices because they required the chips. So we lost like a year on that side of things, and then they phased in our delivery like a few at a time. So we were limited by that when we did the installation. But what we plan to be a 4 or 5-year project is going to be done in less than 2.5 years. So this was due to the efforts of our staff, both in the office and the field, making a concerted effort to keep the project a top priority. That's 9,900 devices that have been installed, both outside and inside. We have, I think, 12 appointments left to schedule, so we're darn close and about ready to celebrate. This is a very large accomplishment. We're quite proud of it. Seeing how this was completed with a division of 10 people doing changeouts and 2 admin staff taking all the phone calls for that amount of people is a big feat. The utility division has also been hard at work maintaining existing infrastructure, such as replacing our older fire hydrants. So there's been some purchase orders you guys have approved for replacing hydrants that have exceeded their useful life. Also tackling main breaks, maintaining our water pump stations, towers, a reservoir, sanitary sewers, force mains, and sanitary lift stations. Additionally, we keep regulatory compliance as a top priority as we take routine samples and have them tested and reported to the IEPA. We also remain in compliance with America's Water Infrastructure Act by having our risk and resilience assessment on file with the EPA, our emergency response plan on file with the EPA, and completed the first phase of our lead service line inventory. Currently, no lead services in the village of Gurnee, which is fantastic. For 2024-25 initiatives, we're keeping compliant with new lead regulations, which includes increasing our sampling at child care facilities and K-5 grade schools. So we'll have to get in there and take samples at all those locations going forward. We're also going to need to take larger samples with a more detailed way. Before you leave a bottle and you tell the person to fill it up first thing in the morning before they use anything else. And now they have to fill up 5 bottles. And they have to give you all 5 bottles, and the first bottle and the last bottle are the ones that are tested. So getting people to fill up 1 is difficult, to fill it up all the way. So we'll see how this works with filling up 5. But it's required, so we'll do our best. And we might even schedule time where like we go out to a spigot. Like tell someone tomorrow morning we'll be out at a spigot nearby your home, take some samples, instead of making people wake up and do all this first thing in the morning. Completing the lead service line inventory will be required by April 15th. So essentially that's a web-based program. You go online, you can see if your service is lead. If you live here, it's not, at least not yet. Investigating unknown services will be done, or we have been doing by scheduling appointments where we go inside the home or the business and we take a look at where the water comes in and have eyes on it, take a photograph of it and check and see if it's lead or not. Finally, our big push in utility is to change out all the meters at some point in the near future. Since we've replaced the reading devices, we're not prepared for the meter replacement program. So this year we budgeted some funds for the first steps of meter replacement. Since it's more intense, this is not something we can do with in-house staff. Scheduling all the appointments, getting inside, it takes more time. But there are other communities that have done this through other management, I guess, consultants is what you would call them. Including Village of Arlington Heights currently has our billing software, our work order program, and our meters. So it behooves us to keep in touch with them. So our utility supervisor, Brett, had met with the guys from Arlington Heights at a conference this past week. So they've made that connection and hopefully we'll be able to capitalize on their learned experiences. Next we go to the fleet division. So in fleet services, we budgeted $3.3 million. That's an increase of $172,000 or 5.5% over last year. This can be attributed to continual increases in parts and labor costs associated with vehicle maintenance and repair. Similar to last year, the automotive industry is still lagging with respect to some parts and availability, and overall vehicle purchases are slow. Some accomplishments this year, though, include obtaining 4 police squads and finding a replacement for the totaled Squad 179. Fleet procured 2 unmarked vehicles for the police department last year as well, or this year. For Public Works Fleet, obtaining the mobile lifts for our larger vehicles was very important for us. We also got a new floor scrubber to help remove the dirt and debris off our shop floors to prevent slips, trips, and falls. We also got the new forestry crew cab was put into service in the summer. The forestry bucket truck arrived already, thank you. So that's at the village, or at our parking lot. We're waiting for the village logo to be put on it, and then it will start to be out for service. The Public Works Police Department generator arrived, actually, last week, I believe it was. Even though we purchased that in December of 22, I believe it was, so finally got that. The 3 plow truck chassis that were approved and ordered last fiscal year are just being completed. However, the upfitting of those same chassis are scheduled for March, April, and May of 2025. As for the status of the 2 plow trucks for our current fiscal year, we haven't been able to place an order yet, but we have come to you probably at the next board meeting for those purchases. Pricing for new chassis hasn't been available, nor have dealers been willing to accept an order. They're not going to take pre-orders. They get certain allocations. So essentially, no one talks to you until the order window opens, which is now. So we got some pricing for that. Next year, we plan to continue to provide ongoing fleet maintenance services for our public works vehicles and equipment, as well as police fleet and community development fleet. We continue to perform hydraulic upgrades on some of our older trucks to relocate hydraulics to the back of the cab to minimize salt damage. And we are also planning to hire a consultant to review the design of the necessary upgrades to our fuel tanks that have reached end of life. Construction for the resulting project would obviously be in the future year, but this year we'll talk. Since it affects everyone, we got to come up with a plan on how to make make it all work when it's out of service and where people are going to go to get fuel. Any questions on any of those three?
Trustee O'Brien?
Thank you. You know I love the wood chip program, but someone did ask me a question. If we're grinding up ash trees, do the bugs go with them when you deliver the wood chips?
Well, so I had this question many a times, actually. So what happens is we chip the trees originally, right? Go through our chipper, and then we tub grind them. So the process, by doing that, it's highly unlikely that the bugs make it through both processes and then continue to survive on a tree that doesn't exist. They don't have a food source then at that point, like a living tree. So it's highly unlikely, but anything's possible.
That's a lawyer's response, just to let you know.
Thank you. That's high praise.
Very good. Very good, Heather. Trustee Thorstensen?
So you talked about, so all good stuff,
Thanks.
and you talked about the lighting grants. Are those, can they be passed on to our businesses?
That I'm not sure of. Most of the time when they come to us, it's a municipal-based one. But I'm not sure if there's other, I guess, more commercial-based ones. I'd have to inquire.
Yeah, if I can reach out to our contact at ComEd, Calandra, and see what they have as far as business opportunities and ask her to forward that along if she doesn't already.
Great, thanks.
My left, anybody? Trustee Garner?
When an ash borer tree is removed, do we replace it with a different one?
Oftentimes we do, but not always, because sometimes where the tree is placed, obviously you can't plant right there. And then we need certain distances from driveways, mailboxes, streetlights, and fire hydrants, and sometimes that doesn't give you enough space to put a tree afterwards, but oftentimes that's our plan. We want to stay Tree City USA, we want to stay with the Growth Award, so.
Awesome.
Can I follow on with another question?
Trustee Thorstensen? Sure.
I'll be brief. So then, I thought if a resident or home had potentially 2 parkway trees, that would be kind of,
Too close?
well, not too close, but we have one that's technically in front of the other neighbors, but it's kind of between ours and theirs. Do you ever just figure that that one's good enough? I think we have an arch, I think I have an arch, ash borer tree.
I don't know the answer to that.
So you
to be
wouldn't
honest.
necessarily, so if there's room to replace it within those constraints you mentioned.
Right.
You'd replace.
Most of the, yeah, whenever we take one away, we try to put one back, like a one-for-one situation. We're not trying to deforest the village, but we also want to make sure that what we put back can thrive and has enough space to grow and mature and live a good life there. But I can check with Carl and get back to our village forester.
That's okay, but I think I'll probably follow up with you.
Sure.
To confirm that I do have a ash borer.
Actually, on our village website, you're able to see what type of tree is in front of your house. If you go to our GIS map, you can zoom into your home and have the tree layer turned on, and you can click on it, and it'll tell you what size it is and what type of tree it is, too, if you're ever interested.
Kudos to our GIS.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's lots of information there. It's great.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good. Trustee Balmas, you're not good?
This is, kind of overall, Ryan. So this whole Orion thing, the replacements and all, I read an article recently in a newspaper about privacy issues and technically Big Brother kind of being able to spy on everything these days because of those kind of things. Is that truly an issue, or?
I don't think it's an
I hope
issue.
not. We just put them all in. No, Heather, take them all out.
Well, here's the reason why, right?
Convenience of them, but
Sure.
the other side,
The reason being, right, people are concerned that you can see when I'm consuming water, so you know when I'm home, right, essentially. when I'm not home. Well, we know you're not consuming water, but we don't necessarily know that you're not home. We know how much you're consuming because we want to be able to tell you that it's your toilet that's leaking, it's a dishwasher problem, or you have something turned on outside. So the volume of water that you use is important for us to help you diagnose what your problem is before you get a sewer bill 2 months from now that says, now you have to pay these sewer fees on a leak. So water that didn't go down the toilet, but still water you have to pay for nonetheless. So there is a trade-off, much like there is a trade-off for having one of these. Everyone knows where you are at all times. So we kind of attribute it to that. But the benefit, I think, to the fact that you won't ever, you could set up leak alerts, you can try to manage your own water, you can go online and get more data, but more data, if there is more data, it means we're tracking more data. But there's benefits versus cons.
They had cited, so that triggered that. I mean, I know Big Brother's out there. 'Cause, Jewel wants your phone number. I mean, everybody wants your phone number. So I just.
Well, and that's another thing, too, that you mentioned, phone numbers. So one of the biggest problems we've noticed when doing this Orion Changeout program is how few people have a legitimate phone number on record. So although we try to put a tag on your door, if that doesn't work, we try a phone call. If that doesn't work, we try an email. But no matter how many methods we try, still we won't always reach everybody. And that's part of the reason why I think it's so successful that we got as many as we did, as quickly as we did.
Thank you.
Well done. Just to say I'm really proud. These are one of those nights where I'm just really proud of how we work together. I think if any of you have had a taste of other villages, this isn't how it always goes. So I really just thank you. Start with Pat thank you for organizing all this and for the board being so interactive, and especially the staff for the boots on the ground for what you've done. That makes this night much easier than, I think, Cheryl and I heard Greg accounting for some Saturday morning meetings and some protracted budget discussions that we don't have because we do the work in advance. So thanks for that.
Well, you're welcome, but we're not done yet.
I want to thank for tonight. Come on. I know we haven't said yes to it yet.
No. Appreciate that, definitely.
Don't burst my balloon.
I'm sorry. Appreciate the kudos, for sure. We got a couple more slides to go over, so going over the different
I
funds.
thought that was not done tonight.
No, that was not done tonight. So these go fairly quick, so Brian's going to run through these for you.
So just, again, walking through the different funds, we still maintain our 911 fund. Prior to the joint ETSB with Zion, this is where all those expenditures came. Now it acts as basically a clearinghouse to request reimbursement from that new fund. So all the expenditure detail is actually in this fund, which is our Northeast Lake County Consolidated ETSB fund. So total budget here, this is split between Gurnee and Zion. Total budget here, $3.2 million. That's up $1.35 million or 72%. On the Gurnee side, up $616,000. Notable purchases out of here, Starcom radios, again for fire mostly, I believe, this year. And then emergency fire dispatch that I think Chief Smith had talked about a little bit earlier. And then we also have this LakeCom contribution, which is potential of a loan to get for LakeCom startup money. So this new consolidated countywide dispatch startup money, essentially, that would eventually come back to us or offset any fee we may pay in the future. But I mean, it's very early discussions on that stuff, so I don't know. There's not many details on that yet. On the Zion side, again, Starcom radios, their portion of that contribution, and then they also have $250,000 in for a generator, similar to what we did with the one that just arrived. We also used these funds for that. Zion is doing the same thing now. One of the things that's included in these numbers is $150,000 for this contract dispatch thing that we had pursued or looked at that turned out not to be what we thought it was. So that'll actually come out for the final. So earlier when we were on that fund balance slide, it comes down to $207,000, I think. Add 150 to that, right off the bat before we get to the final. Next fund, motor fuel tax fund. Again, these are funds that come in from the state, restricted for motor fuel tax, go to offset our road resurfacing program almost entirely. I don't think we use it for anything else now. IML puts out an estimate, so we use their estimate for what next year will be. 1.35 million total budget. That's down $650,000 or 32.5%. It's down because last year we had used previous year's Illinois capital plan funds. So those one-time revenues we used last year, we won't be using those next year. Impact fee fund, we talked a little bit about this earlier. This is a fund that had built up as the community grew, and we've been drawing it down over the last, like I said, probably at least 10 years to offset stormwater management sidewalk programs. It is now depleted. This will be the final year of the transfer of $127,000, and then this fund can go away essentially.
Question.
Trustee Ross?
When you say impact fee, is that the same thing that they used to have for the schools then too? That was an
Similar setup. David could probably talk more about it, but a similar fee, but for a different purpose.
But
Does that make sense?
Is that going away too?
Yes, so for residential new development that's a function of either an annexation agreement or a planned unit development agreement, we collect school impact fees, library impact fees, park district impact fees, and traffic impact fees. The former go to those individual entities. We also collect police and fire and traffic. Police, fire, traffic, I think, are the impact in public works impact fees. Those are the ones that fund this, as well as like anything that's a fee in lieu of sidewalk or a fee in lieu of stormwater detention. Those would also feed into this fund as well.
Just a distinction between why we can close it now. Previously, those amounts coming in had been way more than we were spending annually on a sidewalk program or stormwater management. Now they're not. So we use it as it comes in essentially. So we don't even need a separate fund to track them.
If we collect impact fees on behalf of the schools, the park district, the library, they'll still get those fees despite us closing our fund. This is just our funding. Used to have millions of dollars in it. We spend it down now. It's gone, and the amounts that come in nowadays are small enough that they don't justify holding a fund open just for those fees. So schools are still going to get their money. Yep.
Moving on, PD Restricted Revenue Fund. This fund is set up for seizures, local, state, and federal seizure money. Again, it's restricted. It has to be spent on drug enforcement, DUI enforcement, things like that. Comes into this fund. We spend it on capital items. As over the years, as it accumulates. Total budget $219,000. That's down 48.8%. Have some capital in here for vehicles, and then also flat camera. I want to say this is the maintenance side of it, the subscription side of it that we're paying out of this. So that'll be something that we can cover out of here on an annual basis, really, with the money that comes in here. Anything to add there, Chief Smith? Sorry. Good. Economic Development Fund, this is the one that's new this year. This is where we kind of isolated our rebate agreements, our economic development reserve that used to be in the general fund. Also, out of this fund, we'll do the capital grant program and the Lake County Convention and Visitors Bureau contribution of $190,000 annually maximum there. So total budget, $3.37 million. That's up $484,000 or almost 17%. Just known rebates. Obviously, we have the Great Wolf, the Gurney Mills, and the Six Flags rebates. Also in here is the Economic Development Reserve of $300,000. We have in this other rebates category, I call it, that's the Cooper's Hawk, the Woody GMC, and then a couple others that we anticipate coming forward in the near future. Also $250,000 for the capital grant program, continuing that, and then the $190,000 for the Convention and Visitors Bureau. Capital Improvement Fund, this is non-water and sewer capital. So again, not much has changed here from our capital plan discussion. Total here is just over 10 million. It's up from last year, 3.3%. I have a slide here at the end where we can go through on the actual capital plan what's in here. Again, the only thing that's changed is the addition of 500,000 for streets. So just a couple highlights here. Building and improvements. Obviously, we have the Village Hall HVAC. And then just a discussion, and somebody touched on it, I think Heather had touched on it earlier. Vehicles and equipment, police and public works are funded by a transfer. Fire stays in the capital fund here. So all fire vehicles are purchased out of here. police and public works vehicles are purchased out of the fleet services fund. Golf course fund, the only revenues that come into this are investment income and then amusement tax revenue that is generated by the course we put back in the fund. Typically, we just have a kind of standing expenditure for any clubhouse maintenance that may come up. A couple things on the horizon that are going to be big is the irrigation system. We know that's coming in the near future, somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 million-ish. Currently, we have a fund balance in here of $424,000. So we expect that to use some of that, obviously, when we get to that irrigation system, as well as some other funding sources. But that's a conversation, I think, for a future meeting. On the water and sewer, combine these two funds. Revenue side, charges for service, charges for service, 97, up 587,000 or 6.2%. In here we have usage assumption. So typically we had built into our model usage decreasing. We've seen the opposite over the last few years. So that we included that in the assumptions this year. Overall, looking for a rate adjustment of 6%. That is inclusive of the JAWA rate adjustment of 5%. So JAWA rate, that portion of our rate is going up 5%. Overall rate's going up is proposed to go up 6%. Obviously, that helps us fund capital improvements, upcoming capital improvements. I think Supervisor Fritzler did a presentation about the spike in infrastructure that's coming based on how the community grew over time. This will help us fund that. Over the last couple of years, we've transferred $3.5 million from general fund excess balances to be able to offset not raising rates for a couple of years during COVID. So we've been able to supplement what we needed for capital from that general fund excess. Ultimately, the water and sewer fund needs to be self-supporting, self-sustaining, and fund its own infrastructure. So this plan will get us there. Again, still able to continue the senior discount. JAWA has put a rate plan in. They're going to have 5% for the next 5 years. So we're not only combating that, but also raising funding for infrastructure as we go. If you look at the Village of Gurnee, overall, with all the other JAWA customers, I put this chart together, and this is just water based on 5,000 gallons a month usage. You can see where we're at now, $64.95 on this side of the chart, where we would be with the proposed 6% adjustment. And then I think one important thing to remember here is our rates are very low. If we increased 6% for the next 5 years, we would be at that Gurnee 2028 model, assuming none of the other communities did anything. So if every other community held flat for 6 years, we had a 6% increase for the next 5, we would be at that Gurnee 2028 column. So not proposing that tonight, we're just looking at it year by year because conditions will change. So the proposal for next year is a 6%, understanding that JAWA is going to raise theirs 5%. And we need to start ramping up for that spike in infrastructure spending to try to smooth that out a little bit.
I have a question.
Trustee Thorstensen?
You say in the pre-meeting that VOLO is lower, but that they pass it back on in a tax to the residents?
They do. When they join JAWA, I believe they levy a property tax for all the debt service for that initial infrastructure.
So every home on their tax bill has a JAWA line to pay back that debt service that helps offset their water rate. So the village is collecting it through property tax instead of straight water rate.
I just used water rates for this chart.
And then I guess my other question is, did JAWA not increase, is this meeting their expenses? I mean, 6% a year is quite sizable.
JAWA, their 5% increase coming from JAWA, I mean, they were installed in the early 90s, and just like we talked about with our pipe, that only has so much lifespan, so JAWA has a lot of capital expenditures coming up as well. They were initially looking at rates that were up and down and all over the place, so the executive committee made the recommendation to try to smooth that out over a number of years so we can plan and not have our rates jumping all over the place. So the 5% is where JAWA came back at. Again, the 6%, as Brian said, Right now, we're using general fund money to basically subsidize the water fund. The water fund's an enterprise fund, should stand on its own, support its own capital. Relies on the general fund. If something happens to the general fund with sales tax, amusement tax, COVID, something like that, will then directly impact the capital fund as far as making those improvements. So the proposal will come before the village board at the staff recommendation. If the village board wants to do a different rate, you're the ultimate decision makers on that. So we can provide you the information. And if the 6% is too much and the board wants to do something different, we can provide you what those numbers look like as far as how it affects the fund and take it from there. So.
Thanks.
Then we get into the police and fire pension funds. Obviously, pension funds are funded three sources: investment income, employee and employer contributions. Looking just at the police pension fund, our funded ratio is 79.3%. The actuarial required contribution, or ARC, for this year is 1.94. Our contribution included in the proposed budget is $2.76 million, so we're overfunding by $822,000, or 42% of the ARC. If you remember, we started this, I think, 3 years ago when the ARC started to drop because of large investment returns. Instead of dropping our contribution, we kept it flat and increasing basically, I think 3% a year is what we used as our assumption. This year, we did a 2% increase on last year. So still overfunding what we were supposed to. The ARC, which is the required contribution, still overfunding that for the third year in a row. I think there was 1 year prior to that, but still for the third year in a row, overfunding that in the police pension fund. On the fire side, same thing. Investment, employee and employer contributions is what funds it. 79.6%, ARC of 1.73, our contribution's 2.3, overfunding it by $586,000, or 33.9%. I think, go to capital plan. So capital plan, again, this is consistent with what we had presented at the capital plan meeting, with the exception of additional $500,000 for the transportation system. Total is 16.2. It's down slightly from last year. Transportation system is 6.86 million. 6.5 million road maintenance, the Washington and Hunt Club intersection, and then 150,000 for sidewalks. The building and improvements, 2.55 million. Again, the big one there is the Village Hall HVAC. We have lift station panel replacements, 265,000 for the fire stations, as Chief Kavanaugh talked about. A gatekeeper system at the police department, some public works roofs. I think that's a multi-year program. On the water and sewer side, 3.2 million. That's the Route 21 Grand to Prairie Oak that was mentioned earlier. Again, the water portion of that intersection improvement, and then some SCADA upgrades based on a study. The study that Baxter Wood, I believe, did. Vehicles and equipment, 2.3 million. The police department has a number of squads, 6 squads, a K-9 vehicle, evidence tech vehicle, and an unmarked. On the fire side, as Chief Kavanaugh talked about, an ambulance and the 2 inspector vehicles. Public Works, as Director Glan talked about, 1-ton skid steer, stump and brush cutting attachments, and then stormwater management, 325,000, technology, 915,000. So that is it for the capital plan. Looking at debt, just the final thing here. Obviously, the only outstanding debt the village has is the Knowles Road Tower. It's extremely cheap at 1.84%. Term was 20 years. We're paying it at a rate of to close it in 10 years. Principal to date, 780. Interest to date, 300,000. Additional principal to date, 750. Included in the web version of the budget, there's a debt menu that has some additional information in there that they can go take a look at. Pending items, so as soon as we print the budget, something changes. There's a couple things in pub info that are going to change. Mass notification system in one of the website things is going to come down. MICA final figures, so for insurance, we know that's going to at least stay flat, maybe come down even a little bit. Capital Improvement Fund, still looking at the material bins that we had spoken about in individual meetings. The bucket truck will come out, and then an additional engineering consultant, recent vacancy in engineering, increase that consulting line there, 60,000 to offset that. And then the contract dispatch thing, we talked about 150,000 in that joint ETSB fund, also coming out. So those are, at least for now, the changes that we will make for the final when we get to the public hearing.
Any questions, or?
Now we're
I
done.
think we wore them out. I can't see how good these guys are. I blew it all. Shot the
All
wall.
good.
Sorry.
They
So,
like to
yeah,
hear
you
it.
guys
You
are
can tell 'em
awesome.
again.
You guys are awesome. Yeah, so.
They do a great job. They take ownership in this, so they don't, it's not just show up for a paycheck. You know, they're committed to the village, as the chiefs and Heather and has stated, the staffing challenges over the last couple of years have been difficult, so they've been dealing with that, and then just getting the equipment and stuff in here, so it's been some bumps in the road, but continue to hang in there, do a great job. Budget perspective, so we'll have, unless the board feels like there's a need for a second budget hearing, probably can skip that as far as changing the numbers. We'll have another one before we put the budget on the agenda for formal consideration, April 8th. April, I think it's April 8th. 8th or the 11th. But again, that's a month off, so if you see anything in there they have questions on that needs to be changed or tweaked, let us know, and we can get that on the list for the final budget changes and discuss that at the next meeting. So we'll do a quick 20 minutes before, half an hour before, and then have it on the new business for formal consideration, so we're in a good shape come May 1, so.
We all good? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by trustee Garner, second by trustee Genie. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Gavel. Yeah. See, I did dang.